Hello, I am Certified Moth, and if you are a returning viewer of mine, the one thing you probably know about me is that I'm an art student. I talk about it a lot, I make a lot of my content about it. It's just kind of dominates my life. Which makes it tricky when I'm on summer break and I don't get assignments and I'm not really consistently making art and I'm working a lot. And yeah, it just makes it hard to make paintings and make content. But I did make this painting. I just wanted to make a video where I was talking about the process of this and sort of what was going through my mind while I was making it. Because this painting has come out of a really weird period in my art creation where I don't really know where I'm going with this. With my technique, with my concepts, with my subjects, I just don't really know where I'm planning to go with my practice. And so this has definitely come out of a kind of weird time, so I thought maybe it'd be kind of interesting to talk about. So yeah, let's get on with that. One of the first things of note about this painting is the size of it. We are encouraged to paint very large at art school. The larger the canvas, usually the better. And so it's definitely interesting to go back to this smaller scale. I think it's very comforting in a way. I really used to only paint at this size. And in a way, it makes me stop and think less about the size of the painting and more about the composition. Because usually I find that I'm just so intimidated about how I'm making use of the size, how big everything is on the canvas, that I think a lot of my color and composition kind of fall behind in it. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot to be said about working on a large scale. I mean, hierarchy of scale is a very well recognized thing within art. The larger something is, the more important your brain is probably going to think it is. And I think it's interesting to work with that. But I also think that there's a lot to be said about working on a small scale, and especially just in the ability you have to actually pull things off. It's hard to make things at large scale, and I think it's just much easier to switch between the two. I think both complement each other. Another thing I wanted to try out in this painting is experimenting with my underpainting. I am sure that she's not the only person to do it, but this lime green was really inspired by the artist Saskia Vander. I would really recommend checking out her channel. Her art content is absolutely fantastic and really underrated. Just if you enjoy painting content, she does some amazing stuff. My goal for this painting was kind of to blend this newer technique of this bright lime green underpainting with this concept that I've been exploring for a little while now, which I jokingly call my self-cessed artwork, which is basically just a series of art that is about engaging with myself in some ways. Like, I made the one painting where it very much was like high-key self-cessed, but just ones where I am interacting with myself. There are multiples of me in the same painting. And really just trying to find my own voice within this concept. Because obviously I'm not the first person to try this concept. A lot of people have done this sort of thing. And so I just really wanted to figure out, okay, how does my personal voice really change the meaning of this piece? And so when I come at this concept, I really want to come at it from the idea of like, okay, I am an autistic person who struggles very deeply to connect with people. And so how does that change how I connect and engage with myself? And when I make ones that are more romantic in theme, the question is sort of how do I engage with romance in myself as an aro ace person? And how does not experiencing romantic attraction change how I am going to engage with myself and continue my life in the future? And sort of pushing against that idea of there being a right way to perform just like love in life. And of course, there's always the way to come at it of gender. It's very easy for me to sort of compartmentalize the ways I engage with gender into like different versions of myself, like ones that are desperate for approval of others versus ones that fundamentally don't understand societal ideas of gender on like a fundamental level, and how do those engage with each other? And most recently, I've actually been thinking about another theory. This theory sort of came after this painting, so it doesn't really apply here, but I've really been thinking about algorithms and generative AI chatbots and like social media, and basically how they will feed you back a version of yourself, like especially with things like ChatGPT. They literally like analyze the way you speak to them and guess the best way to project that back at you in a way that will give you what you want. And I think that's also a really interesting thing to explore with the idea of two versions of yourself engaging. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep going with that. I'm not super tech-minded, so engaging my entire practice with tech kind of sounds a bit scary, but it's something I'm definitely thinking about. But yeah, like a million different ways to go with just this one concept. And at this point, you're probably wondering, okay, so what direction did you go with it in this painting? And the answer is that I didn't really go with any of those. I was making this, and as I was sketching it out and taking the references, I couldn't think of anything, and I was thinking, oh, it'll come to me as I paint it, and it really didn't. You know, it's kind of frustrating when that happens, but I just think that this piece was kind of, on a fundamental level, a little bit uninspired. I came up with the imagery without any idea of the concept, and that always is going to make it harder for me. I think I did make a couple of choices that did make it have a bit more of a narrative, specifically that the back figure is very pale and painted with like these blues and pinks and lacks a lot of like that humanness in the face and the skin. And that was another thing that was very inspired by Saskia Vander, but again, I just don't really see anything that I think makes this painting super stand out or meaningful in any way. It feels like I was trying too hard to make something that looked cool, if that makes sense. And I feel like the struggles I had with the concepts behind this painting and just creating this painting in general are really just very indicative of my art as a whole right now. I mean, I love painting, I really do. I'm so happy that I chose it as my major, but I am just in a place where I'm very stuck. I don't think it's super controversial to say that the painting world can be pretty oversaturated, and I think it's sometimes hard to be really truly original and stand out in any way. If you just make paintings, and it's hard to stand out. And that's something that I had a professor who was very clear about that with us, that if we don't have something that really distinguishes our practice from everyone else's, there's not a very good chance of us being able to make it in the art world. And I think that makes it really scary going into my third year, which is the year we're supposed to really be figuring out our practices. Like, third year is the year we're supposed to start being able to make a series of works, and that is a really scary prospect. And so I think when I made this painting, I wasn't really thinking about it as just an individual piece of work, but as my entire practice. I was thinking, could I do this as a continuing practice, or is this a one-off? Can I make this work for me? And I think I was just so caught up in that idea that I had a hard time sitting back and just thinking about this piece as an individual. I will say, the one thing in this painting that I think really changed my practice is that this was my first painting in a long time that was oils. And I realized I love oil paint so much. Like, I don't even know if I want to keep continuing my acrylic practice after this. The process of using the oils and just the buttery smoothness of them and the way they apply just works absolutely perfectly with the way I personally go about painting. And yeah, I feel like that's the one thing that I know going into third year is that I want my practice to become very oil focused. Anyways, I do apologize that this video is like so rambly. I don't have a script or anything. I'm just talking off the top of my head. But I wanted to do a little segment that was a self-critique of this painting, because I do think this painting had some good aspects and some bad ones, and I do really want to talk about that. One of the big things that really sticks out to me the second I look at this painting is that the background is very uninspired and muddy. I had completely finished the figures before thinking about a background, and I just put in like a wall and a roof, and I think that was very much a downfall to this painting. It is just incredibly boring, and I really think that the color I ended up going with makes the back figure really blend into it. I think that's kind of a shame. You know, I guess I could see it acting as part of the narrative of making it, I think it makes the back figure look kind of ghostly. It makes them look see-through, like they're part of this scene and like they're the background, not a figure. But I don't know, I just don't love it, and especially the line between the wall and the ceiling is crooked. I didn't use a ruler for it and it's been driving me crazy. Like, if the only thing you're gonna have in your background is gonna be a straight line with some shading, you better make that line straight. It's not good. I didn't really go into detail about the green underpainting I used in this. There definitely are some spots where it sticks through, and I do think it's interesting. You know, there's some spots where instead of like line, I left some negative space of green, and like there's some spots where the skin on the right face is see-through and you can see some of that green poke through, and I do think it's really pretty. But my big question to myself is, how does this serve my practice? You know, when I see Saskia Vander do it, she just uses that technique so beautifully, and I think it really, really works for her paintings. And I just don't know if I see that in mine. It'll probably take a lot more experimentation before I make up my mind on that. I wonder if it would have been more successful had I pulled that green into the background. Perhaps that could have been the thing that really sets my figures apart from the background, because I tried very hard to not bring too much green into these figures. I kept that blue completely apart from any yellow I used, and I do think that helps the green really stand out. But I think I could have used some green in the background to really pull everything back together. One thing that I do absolutely love about this painting is the style. I went quite painterly with this, and it isn't successful in every spot. Specifically the forearm of the back figure I think looks a bit sloppy, but that hand, oh, I love that hand. That's probably the best hand I've ever painted. I usually avoid them, but it made me want to paint more. And the faces, the face on the right could be better, but the face on the left just has such a perfect balance to me of like these abstract brush movements, but also the form of a face, and I just really love it. And the way I use the colors, I just really enjoy that face. I think part of the reason I like the way I did the painting on the hand so much is because it intersected that brush style that I love with that bit of the underpainting poking through in a really nice way. It's like quite intense, but it just works for me. Another thing that sort of stands out to me about this piece is the composition. Now, I have never considered myself particularly strong at composition in any way. Like, I can't name any of the actual techniques of composition, but I do think I used some interesting diagonals in this piece. I think I could have done a bit more work to really draw the eye back into the face, but I think because of the really, really bright light whites I used in the left face, it sort of keeps drawing everything back to it. And I don't know if that works or if it doesn't. So yeah, that's about everything I have to say about this painting. I do apologize if this video was kind of all over the place. I was just looking at my analytics and realized I hadn't posted for like 20 days and I felt kind of bad about it. So I just wanted to get something out there. Okay. So final verdict of this painting for me, I don't hate it. Like, I would hang this up in my room, I probably will. I don't think it's particularly strong. I wouldn't really want to show this piece in like a critique. I mean, maybe I could. But this just isn't at the level I personally hold myself to in my paintings, just conceptually really above all else. I just think there's a lot more directions I could go with this, and this definitely wasn't the best example, and I think that's fair considering where I am mentally with my practice right now. So yeah. If you got all the way through this video, thank you for sticking around. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, I don't know, tell me something interesting. I really appreciate it. Bye!